Hi everyone, welcome back to Work Right with Rich, the show where we get into the honest, unfiltered side of what it really takes to make work well work. I'm Richard Farmer, your host and Asia Managing Director at CXC. How are you all doing? I hope everyone's had a great festive season. It's a fantastic time to talk about new things and new ways of working. Now, I'm hearing very different stories from senior leaders at the moment. A lot more people are working independently or fractionally, but the experience isn't the same for everyone. Some are busy and doing great work, others are finding it hard or harder than expected to, find those opportunities or to break into that fractional world. So today I wanted to talk about what's actually going on in the fractional market and how people are making this work in 2026 and beyond. So joining me today is what we could say is the expert, Moritz Kaffsack. He spends a lot of time with the independent and fractional leaders, and the company's bringing them in. So he's got a good read on what's changing, what's actually working in the market across Asia. Moritz, it's great to have you here. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Rich.
We've met before, so it's going to be like talking to an old friend. But I saw from your background, I'm an old recruiter, had a good old stalk of what you've done before, but you've spent many years across Asia and Europe and coming from that kind of communications background. It'd be great to get a bit of an introduction on yourself in your words.
Absolutely. I've been traveling quite a bit in the region since 2002, starting in Thailand, continuing in India for many years, Vietnam, then, like you mentioned, Emirates, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, a brief stint back in Europe and back in Singapore and now in Vietnam. So it's been quite a journey. Yeah.
You should have a career in their travel guides. But definitely probably you'd have some great restaurant recommendations. And now you're based in Ho Chi Minh, one of my favorite cities, or could be the favorite city in Asia. It's a fantastic place. So I suppose from your vantage point, being in this space and running your community and your platform, what feels noticeably harder about being, independent or fractional leader today compared to maybe a couple of years ago? What's maybe causing that kind of friction?
It's absolutely worthwhile, I think, looking back a few years. We started the community in 2023 in August. And at that point, there were some fractional leaders out there in Singapore.
Mm.
I've been working for a few years, right? They were those early pioneers in this space. But if you talk to them back then, if you talk to them today also, they will tell you they were pretty much fending for themselves. They had to
Mm.
figure out how to find clients. They had to figure out how to make the model work. They had to figure out the scoping, their niche, etc., with really relatively limited support, and also with clients who didn't really know what this was, and they had to do all the lifting by themselves. Yeah. Um, if you see what's happened, and that's quite amazing, right? Over the last 2 or 3 years, the awareness has ballooned in Singapore, right? And with awareness comes an education also on both sides of the talent and of the client. Um, so you would say, of course, in principle, that's a good thing. And it also means that if you have been around for a while, it probably is a little bit easier to get work today because many clients or prospects you meet, they've heard of the model. They have maybe already have a fractional on the roster, right? They may be already working with people in that way. So you don't have to sell the model. You can just sell your service. In that situation, ideal situation, right? Does it make it easier for everyone? You're really putting your finger on something here, Rich. I think is super important. There are a lot of people coming into this now, also because of the market situation, who are interested in, say, after 20 years of an extremely successful career in different corporate environments, to say, I want to take this skill, this experience, and apply it in a different and a new way. Now, for them, I would say it's not necessarily easier. And the reason is this, because you have more educated clients, you have a more educated market. There's also a bit of an expectation of just being able to hit the ground running in a different way, right?
Mm.
So as someone who comes in new, the client has questions now, smarter questions now than he might have had a few years ago, because they've been around the block once, they understand, right? And so if you're a veteran and experienced in this space, you can answer those questions in a second, because you've answered that question dozens of times and you know the model. You can talk about things like how the onboarding is going to work, about non-competes, about all of these somewhat hairy topics or concerns that clients sometimes have, and how to make it work, right? If you're new, now you're catching up basically in these
Yeah.
daily situations. And so I think that's what makes it a little bit more difficult, I think, in a way, because the clients have become a little bit more discerning, although I wouldn't say we're in a mature market yet. But more likely than not, you will meet a client that has heard something, that has an idea of the questions they should be asking, And so as a newcomer to this space, you got to catch up quick.
Yeah, I've definitely heard those examples and kind of just taking a kind of a trip down memory lane for myself. I started my own consulting business once I'd left a large a talent business. And yeah, I suppose I was a fractional contractor then because my consulting business, I was working for different companies as a business coach, leadership coach. I was also offering training and training services. And I think one of the things that people don't understand is that they perceive, and I suppose this is my question, is that it's very easy to just come into the market and get work, right? When it's actually not, because you have to do everything. As you said, it's about this. So how have you seen people coming in, and this could be around advice, that if you're an executive coming into the market, have they misread the market or the situation? And what are the common mistakes people make?
So the first thing is you're coming off this decades of corporate experience, right? At that point, you know how to interview for roles because either you've done it externally or you've done it in the organization you've been with, right? The biggest misread is that when you're entering a consulting business or a fractional business, you're no longer filling a job. You're no longer filling a role. You're actually running a business. And that sounds simple, but in terms of mindset, it's not simple at all. I think the biggest jump to make is I'm not filling a role. I'm not doing a job. I'm solving a problem. And it is that problem that you're solving that the client is looking for, saying, who is the right person to solve this problem for me? If you don't know what that problem is, or if you're not entirely clear what that problem is, coming with your CV and with your experience and your roles is relatively useless to the client. Nice to haves don't sell in fractional consulting work, right? It has to be a real pain point. And so if you then think about that, then the first thing you actually need to figure out is who is my client? If you're not clear who your client is, you don't know what their pain points are, you cannot sell a service to them. I guess the misread is to think my experience on its own as a CV, as a LinkedIn profile will be sufficient for me to get work. It is not. You have to go through this pivot of your skills and experience towards something that's valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've actually given advice to some senior executives coming into the market, and they said, "Well, I've got this amazing CV," and I was like, "It doesn't say anything there. It's a list of duties. What you actually do is," and I've said, "build an executive portfolio in PowerPoint and present yourself with the problems you've solved, things you've done throughout time, solutions you've done, and actually even talk about your family, talking about other things you've done outside, because people are buying people, and when you're coming in as more of a consultant, you're there to one, solve a problem, but they know that you've already done it before is the key thing. I think as well, a lot of the time in this fractional space, I feel that clients often don't know what their problem is. Is that something that you've had experience with, like helping them identify where you can fit as well?
Absolutely. So I mean, if you look at the challenge on the client side is always what is actually the brief, right? This is,
Mm.
and if you don't get this right, then if you're looking at a company, if you don't get this right, then how are you ever going to be able to get the right people in to solve that for you if you cannot properly define it? This is a huge benefit for savvy fractional leaders, though, because they have been on that side in the past, and so they have a better way of sussing out the real challenge. And this is key to the proposition, actually, is to say I can come in and I can, yeah, you have an idea of the area where you have an issue and you have symptoms of an issue and you have reasons that are, that are for you very tangible to why this needs to be solved. But how exactly to address it and what exactly it is that needs to be addressed, this I can help you with. And again, it's something that we do on the business side, on the Flexer side, where we have a mandatory listening tour at the beginning. So there's an onboarding that includes a conversation with each leader in the organization on the company side that is in some way involved with a fractional leader. And the reason we do this is because, yes, you get a brief from the CEO or from the owner or from the founder, but that brief is often not 100% complete. That there are some things in there that the CEO, founder, owner just doesn't think of sharing because it comes so natural to them, right? It's just part of how we run. Sometimes it's about dialing up and down the challenges of what has been tried before also and hasn't worked and why this hasn't worked. This is often not clear. It's not like people come to fractional leaders as a first go. Often they try to solve it themselves. Maybe they bring in an agency and nothing has worked, right? So when the fractional leader then has smart conversations, deep conversations with the different leaders in the organization in the first week of their project, they get to uncover the different facets and dimensions of the problem. And this is then the skill, of course, to connect those dots and come back to the CEO or to the owner and to say, I found out different aspects to this problem that are key to how we're going to solve this. And here's what I propose we do. Let the CEO owner react to it and then be able to actually move forward with a very crystal and aligned brief that has already tied in the other stakeholders, right? So this is the thing that fractional leaders, when done right, can really show their value and their success.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm hearing to be successful, it is around those questioning skills and those deep dives, right? I think, and that's sometimes quite hard because a lot of fractional roles can often be around technology or it can be around finance, which is a skill that's often about looking at and seeing the problem where you've always got to be in this role selling yourself. This is the thing. So probably looking at it, you've probably seen some fractional leaders, and this is again more advice for the listeners. The ones that are successful, they either get a longer term project or go from project to project. And then you see some others that have short term projects and then kind of skirt around the edges of the kind of community or the business. So what are you kind of seeing there in terms of what makes the difference of that, the success compared to that kind of mid-level success within fractional?
I mean, like you just said, it's like success is it's very difficult to define, also very subjective, right? Some people prefer to have these projects so that they're able to do other things also, right? So some people are aiming for these retainers. Sure, financial success comes with having, in many ways, a combination of both, like a retainer plus project model, plus maybe some workshops, plus maybe something else that's in the mix, right? The retainer itself and the long-term relationship with the client is, the long-term relationship with the client is definitely something that I think everyone that I know aims for and is trying to achieve. And the people that achieve this long-term relationship, in my experience, are those who don't fall asleep on the retainer and don't fall asleep on the relationship, which is an easy thing to do. You get comfortable, right? And the reality of most of the organizations you work with, if you've been brought in to solve a problem, is that their environment changes, their situation changes. And so you should always be ahead of that. If you're able to do that, you're much more likely to gain this long-term trust and this long-term relationship, rather than at some point people saying, do we still need, it's quite expensive, right? Do we still need this? Do we still need him or her? Stay ahead of it. And there's a bit more radical way to do it, which I also think works quite well, is some people just don't sign retainers at all. They just say consecutive projects, beginning and an end. We deliver, we agree that it has been delivered, and we get the next brief and we move on, right? Yes, and we do the next project. So I think both of these I think that's what really makes the difference. The second thing is, of course, referrals, and they're just getting used to asking for them also, because often maybe your client does not have more work for you, but they have other friends in the industry, someone else who might need a sharp person on the team. And so that's, I think, the second thing that I see, that some people who do it better, they get more work that way.
Yeah. I think having a flexible pricing model is always good. I think one thing for people is commitment to it. So I've said to people, if you really want to go in and do this and become an independent contractor, you need to commit for a certain amount of time. Don't kind of dip your toe in while you're looking for a job. You can get another project or go and help someone or do stuff. But if you want to brand yourself, you want to really commit to this space, you want to build a website, it takes time. It does take time. So you've got to be able to have that collateral or, finances behind you to give yourself some time, some breathing room. And also know that a lot of the clients and contacts you have coming into the market, they're not automatically going to give you work. They know how good you are, but they might be like, how much do you value yourself? So I think a lot of people find it hard as well, just valuing how much their time is worth. And, it is a hard conversation, but he's kind of backing that up and knowing that you can solve that. But I do like your point in terms of sometimes the retainer can be too much pressure for both sides. Also, it can be, having those conversations and continually looking for the next project. You've always got to be looking at that, because when you're delivering, you can't be selling. Well, it's hard, right? So it's from there. As you see more leaders entering this space, like, carrying on that conversation, how are they standing out in the market?
The first thing I would say is it's an internal thing. You started the conversation with this, Rich, right? Saying, is it more difficult now? In a way it is, but you're standing on the shoulders of giants also. You have other people who are very successful now. Some who've been around for 8 years, some who've been around for 3 years. As I see in the Portfolio Careers in Asia community, there is an incredible willingness to share and to learn from each other. This community is still very, I would say, very open, very operating on a culture and a mindset of abundance, and really sharing best practice with each other every step of the way. And I would absolutely tap into this if you're new to this space, because you are able to speed up your ability to deliver and to succeed in this space, right? Just by out there meeting others who know how, and they say, listen, don't make this mistake. I learned this the hard way. This happens all the time in our community, and it's so valuable for people who come in new. The second piece is also, again, to the point that you made in the beginning, it's much harder today, means it is even more important today to niche down. It is counterintuitive for many people who come into this space. There is I see this time and again, also through the accelerator program that we run, there's always a pull towards this generalist positioning.
I can do think.
Everything, right? Then like the worst mistake you can make as a consultant, right? To say, I can do everything for you. No one believes that, right? And there's a second challenge to this: is if you can do everything, then you mean nothing to the market, right? It doesn't mean anything. You don't stand out. You don't stand out. The reason why there's this pull, though, and you have to understand that, I think, to understand what to do about it, is the fractional leaders are seriously worried that they will lose opportunities if they don't have a broad positioning. If they don't say, I can do 10 things, they might lose opportunities. And this is the thing to overcome, because it is, if you ask any successful fractional leader time again, it's the proof is in this niching down into a very specific problem to solve for a very specific client in the outbound communication. Inbound, you can take whatever fits into whatever is in your wheel or whatever you can deliver, right? And you will always inbound get things left and right of what your positioning is. That is normal. You go talk to a client about a very niche down service, and they say, can you also do this? Because that's actually an area where I have an issue with. And then you can say yes. But if you're too broad outbound, you're gonna just dilute your positioning, basically. And so I think the niching down, you see this sometimes people do this by sector very well, or within a sector, even into a subsector. Sometimes people do this by in the more broad roles, like fractional chief of staff, for example. They do this in the way that they overlap into another area. They say, I'm a fractional chief of staff with a deep tech expertise. So this is very, very valuable for founders and owners as well, right? So if you can be very clear about what your specialization is, this is the real win now.
Yeah, and we've seen that, like, a mutual friend of ours, Gerard, who's doing obviously fractional chief of staff, but he's deep down, he's in that kind of talent space, anything around recruitment, HR technologies. And that's what I've seen. I definitely see that that's the key thing. I think he's great. Was it Greg McEwen that does? He says you can do anything, but not everything. Is the key thing, and I think it's having the confidence to go, well, what is my, golden thread? What is the piece that I can add the most value to? And actually saying no to clients sometimes is more powerful, saying, I'm not the best person to do that. That actually goes a lot further than saying, yeah, I'll have a try, because, that it is your personal brand, right, in this sector. So you want to make sure it's better referring it to someone that is better, and you'll get more kudos. And what goes around, and what you mentioned before, and it's something I noticed, that when you are in that independent contractor, people actually do help each other. They give a lot of advice. They come together. They refer business, because sometimes they can be too busy. Because everyone knows what it's like. It's an amazing experience, but it also can be challenging and stressful. But they're very open with advice, and also coming together because they're working on their own. They're not in an office getting bombarded by a million phone calls. Sometimes it's everything's going out, not coming in. So I think the community is a really key piece from that.
That's where I think why it's grown so much, right? I mean, we started with 30 people 2.5 years ago. I invited 30 individuals who I knew were interested, and we just hit 2,000, more than 2,300 this month. I would say it's this camaraderie piece, like having someone on the journey with you. You don't have colleagues anymore, right? You also need someone to vibe with, or to just bounce an idea around, or maybe even to vent, or right. And it is hard. It is very, very difficult to do this, get up every day on your own and try to win business, try to be successful. But out of that comes exactly what you said, comes this I get help, I help others. Like it's an amazing culture that exists in the general in the general ecosystem. I would say it's not just limited to the community, but it comes true in the community very much so. In our chat, I mean, every day people ask. We have a joke in the community saying, "Can someone ask a question we cannot answer?"
Yeah, and I think what you see from that, I have my own experience of this when I was doing a training program. I actually built a team of the fractional people. I pulled them together and said, right, I can't do it on my own. I need more people. You'll see that as well, because if you see a project and you're leading a project and there's a piece within the business, you're like, I'm not an expert of that, but I could bring someone in. It's just that it's solving those, it's getting ahead and solving those problems for the client, which I think is really key.
Well, we had
Yeah.
this happen actually we just ran the accelerator program for the Fractional Business Accelerator for the
Yeah.
first time in October last year. Cohort of 19. While this is going on, it's a very intense 5-week program. While this is going on, 2 in the cohort actually tied up to go pitch and win together, and they won it. So completely different backgrounds, or not completely, but somewhat like different backgrounds, but clear synergies for this pitch. One found a client or prospect. They went in together, they pitched together, they won it together, and now they're executing it together.
Fantastic. And while we're on that, you just mentioned it, but what is the accelerator program? Tell me a bit more about that.
We launched it first time in October last year. We just launched application for the next cohort yesterday in the community, and we'll open it up for the broader ecosystem next week. Basically, it comes out of this need that we talked about, Rich, of how do you speed up your journey, right? You can have a lot in the peer-to-peer space. You can have a lot of interaction and figure out through your own client engagements, etc. But what we wanted to deliver is a much more intense 5-week program that leads you through these key steps. So how do I position myself? Who's my ideal customer? How do I get to my ideal customer? What is the pricing that I should use, and what business model? How much money will I make then based on that? And how do I pitch to them actually? And we wrap up with a day in front of a panel of SME owners, startup CEOs, and others in the ecosystem, leaders in the ecosystem, to basically get real feedback, like a pressure test, right? And so within those 5 weeks, I mean, a few things happen. Of course, there's a lot of knowledge, but there's also exchange, like I mentioned, between the cohort. A lot of growth happens, and a mindset shift happens. And I always I relate this to like a muscle that this is not a theoretical learning, right? This is a muscle you have to flex, and the first time is hard, and the second time gets easier, and then after you go through the program, you flex it over and over again, you get there, right? You get there much faster. And so, like I said, ran for the first time last year. I would say, I mean, the feedback was tremendous. It was so good. So repeating it again in March this year.
So that's fantastic. I think just giving people those answers they need, right? It's basically giving them the kick off their business, and they get to practice rather than going in and pitching to a real client for the first time and walking out disheartened going, yeah, that didn't go well, to actually like having some structure. And that pricing piece is like, what can I charge for this? How do I charge for this? How do I do invoicing? How do I build my brand?
It is the hardest thing, you know? There's so many levers you can pull, to be honest. Do you want to do hourly, daily? Do you not want to have a rate at all, but just go in like by deliverable? A number of different things. And one of the hardest things to make decisions on how do you want to run your business, right? And so we spent the whole week on that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised, because there's daily rate, there's like you mentioned, hourly, there's retainer, there's SAW, there's time and materials. There's all things you can get into, right, in terms of levels of risk, but also levels of pressure. Yeah, you can undercharge for yourself. You can get things, don't get it wrong, but yeah, it's all a learning curve, but it's very interesting. You've mentioned that they've obviously, say they've gone through the accelerator, and then they've managed multiple clients, right? They've managed to win quite a lot of clients. Where does the pressure really show up first for an independent contractor or a fractional leader? And what's your advice around managing that?
So the hard thing with multiple clients is at one point you're going to get to that stage where you're going to have to ask one client to move a meeting, or to say, I need a bit more time on this, right? And they will know that it is likely because you have another client meeting or you have other work, right? And this is normal. They know that you have other work. This is not the challenge. The challenge is oftentimes clients will think that they're not the priority client. This is the real challenge, right? They will think that they're being deprioritized against something else. It's a natural like reaction to this. And there's a bit of, I would say, there's prep work to be done to avoid this. And the prep work really is to, from day one, really focus on building trust, that the client understands that you have their best in mind and you prioritize them all the time. Yeah. And when you've built that trust, and when they understand that you of course have other work, but they know that they're always on top of your mind, then they will be absolutely fine with moving a meeting here or there, or delaying a deadline here or there, etc. Right? So, but that's the first thing. I think there's another place where this sometimes falls down, and this is one to watch out for, because of course, while as a fractional leader, usually you are and you should be directly connected to the boss, right? The CEO or the founder or the owner or the business unit head in a large organization, not to a more junior person, because you need that backing for the model to work. But at the same time, you do work with other people in the team. And this is sometimes where it falls down, where other people then say, oh, you're not reliable. Like I cannot trust you to stick to the deadline or to be there when I need you, etc., etc. And so again, I think from the beginning, for this to be set up right from the top of the organization, saying this is how we're going to work with this fractional leader. They do there does need to be some flexibility sometimes, etc., etc. And this is key. And it's a conversation that's not easy to have in the beginning, but you must have it as a fractional leader, and you must also have it as an organization. Otherwise, later on, it turns into an issue, right? And the biggest issue, of course, is if you, as a fractional leader, you're treated as an external by the team. Of course, you are an external, but if you're treated like an external, means maybe things are not shared with you. Maybe, and this is actually key, maybe you're not invited to the Christmas party, right? And you don't get to have the water cooler talk, and you don't understand what's going on because people are not letting you in on it. And so as a company, if you're bringing in these sorts of hands-on consultants, please do invite them to the Christmas party. Treat them like one of the team, because it makes all the difference, right? And then they will be accepted by the team, and the best cases as just a member of the team who just is not here all the time and who has a different way of working with us, right? And this is ideal, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think one of the hardest things coming into any business is one to build trust quickly, right? Because even just coming in as when you have a new job, you can often see half the room are like a bit wary of that individual coming in because they're going to do things differently, what they're coming to fix. It might be a project that someone else has not delivered, so there's stress around that. So having that key senior sponsorship, but also I would say this may be a question like, is part of the Accelerate program some things you've toured? Like, how do you prep the leader to prep their business for you coming in? So, and I'll give you a bit of context to that because if the a lot of CEOs are very busy, or they, because they've got to set you up for success, but sometimes they're the worst communicators. So, how would you like advise for people like, so you're going in there, like, what are you going to have to say? You can say, you need to communicate that I'm coming in on this day and what I'm doing. Is it around that level? Is it to that granular level?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, first of all, they have a lot of other things on their mind. That leader has a million other things to do rather than figure out what's the best way to onboard you. And they might not even know. And you're the expert, right? You know what can fall down and you know what to get right in the first few weeks. So at Flexer, we've actually built this into the process at an extremely granular level. I mentioned the listening tool already. This is not just for the crystal clear brief. This is also for the first touch point with the leadership team, with the others on the team, to get your position with them right, to show the value that you are going to bring, etc., and to build a first layer of rapport and relationship. But then when it's accepted, we would not just say, this is the day. First of all, this is the day where the communication goes out to the leadership team. This is the day when the communication goes out to the broader team, that we're bringing in someone as a fractional leader. And ideally, you draft the communication for them. You actually develop it and you say, here's a draft. This is how I would propose that we put this out, because it'll help me do my work better. And I would say in all of these things, and there are a couple more to this, right? A granular onboarding process, take charge and do not hesitate to tell people what you think should be done, because you're also putting yourself in the position from day one of the relationship of saying, I know how to make this successful. I will not rely on you to make this successful. Leave it to me. I will tell you how we're going to run this. And then within a few weeks, we're going to be running and delivering impact, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. It all comes down to setup. And do you see that as the most common issue with a fractional or independent contract assignment not being successful? Is it in the setup? Is that where it goes wrong? Or is it around delivery? Like, what do you see that as the most common areas where you think, oh, this assignment's not going to be successful?
It is definitely, it's a huge percentage of, I would say, of the success. Absolutely. You set it up right from the beginning. There's an element I haven't mentioned yet, which is you are expected to deliver impact very, very quickly. You don't have 90 days or 100 days for a plan or whatnot. So part of the listening tour is also, the objective of that is at the end of it that you deliver an action plan. It's a very top-line action plan. It is based on what you know at that point, but it is an action plan you can start actually delivering while you are still learning. So running on parallel track of continuously learning, but also delivering is a key skill for any fractional leader coming in. If you wait too long, the relationship changes a bit, right? Then you're kind of in a slower onboarding phase, in a slower delivery phase. It's not good, I would say. Not that it's not salvageable, not that you cannot still make a big impact. But I'm always on the side of trying to move fast and see where the low-hanging fruit are within the first 2 weeks and immediately start moving things. The other place, though, I would say where it falls down is, and this is kind of I think a key, also just a skill that fractional leaders need to have, is to be able to look around, always look ahead, right? And this is for the longer engagements. Is it comes back to this falling asleep on a retainer. What I mentioned earlier is ideally always look ahead to what might be coming around the corner. This is also something, yes, we talked about acting like you're part of the team and being accepted like you're part of the organization, but there is still a huge benefit of being an external, right? Still having an external mindset. So, okay, we've solved this problem, but I can see the next problem around the corner already. And if you don't do this now, this will happen, right? This is the value. This can never stop, ideally. Ideally, you should always be looking ahead and looking around the corner, because otherwise you deliver and then you sit and say, that was awesome. And then it hits you, right? So that's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the beauties of being independent contractors, you're independent. You're not there to be liked, you're there to deliver. In a lot of instances, you can say what no one else wants you to say, and that's sometimes where you can build trust with people in the organization. And say, look, you don't want to say it. You don't want to come to the CEO with this, but I can help you get this done. Would your life be better if we solve this? And like, yes, okay, I'll help you do that then. So I think it is kind of playing that game and so forth and getting that instance. But yeah, I think what we're hearing is it has to be the start is where you set yourself up for success and you make sure your deliverables are deliverable, over promise and under deliver, as they say, and making sure you're building that trust from day one, I think is a key. If we talk about the actual roles that you're seeing in the market, have you seen an increase in a certain type of role that's being deployed, or are they getting more deeper, more strategic? Or is it that there's more competition for these sort of roles? Is it getting more high level? What are you kind of seeing from a trend?
Freelancers are not new, right? Freelancers have been around
Yeah.
for forever. What we're talking about here is very senior people solving very high value problems.
Yeah, problems. Yeah.
And there has been a definite evolution. Firstly, on the fractional side. Now, let me say two areas where this demand is coming from. The first one is you're an SME or you're a startup and you are limited in headcount. You need to deliver in different areas at the same time. And you now understand that there's a solution for that, so that you don't have to choose between the CFO, the CHRO, or the CTO at a senior level, but you actually get to hire all three on a fractional basis. And so there, it was very common, I think 3 years ago already, to have a fractional CFO, especially in the startup space. But this has now extended to many other roles in this space, right? So you have CHROs, you have CTOs, and it's just that the model is becoming quite popular, especially in times when headcount is tight, right? But there's a second, and this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning as a service model. Other companies don't compare you to full-time hires; they compare you to other external partners that they have.
Yes.
For example, they have a consulting firm, a marketing agency. I don't know what other partner external, but they understand they're not happy entirely with what that partner is delivering, and they see someone senior who has operational experience who they can give some of that scope to. Other external partner is too focused only on execution, not really giving direction, or maybe not even not also challenging the direction that's being given. Maybe the partner is working too much on a brief and return basis. Or maybe the partner just doesn't have the specialization that is required. And so what I also see is just companies carving out scope from their external partners to say, why don't we give this to an independent consultant? That's what they call it then. They don't call it a fractional. It's an independent consultant saying, come into the mix, help me, please. Help me be the senior push on this and the brain, and also, but with understanding of execution, right? And help improve of what we're doing. And I think that is being driven also, again, a bit by, of course, constraints, but also just of availability of this sort of talent in the market. And it has been a talent-driven movement, but it has helped a lot, I think, because you see more and more incredibly good people out there. So how can we leverage this, right? Progressive leaders will say, I'll find a way to get better by just tapping into that, rather than going the traditional models of either hire or outsource.
Yeah, I would agree with those comments. I think I think that's where the market's kind of shifted in terms of that. I mean, it is the perfect thing. If you're a startup or you've got a certain amount of collect capital, but you need that insight to take it to the next level and being able to bring that in using that and then moving on, right? So you don't have to hire permanently. The question I want to know, so is your community, is that open for, because say I'm an MD for a 60 global, I've got a problem in my finance or technology. How do I find a fractional worker? Because that's also the other side, is that they might, I need this talent, I need this. And like, I know my friends, I can ask, is anyone you know that can come and solve this? But what happens, like, how do they get to look at the 2,000 workers? Is it like, is this something that the community offers, more of the opposite way round, that a client can come to you and you'll find them the right kind of person?
Totally different ways, right? The old, and you mentioned the traditional way before any of this really became big would be you ask a friend, and the friend says, "Oh, I have, please meet her, my friend.
Yeah.
You're so good at this, right? She's going to solve your problem." This is what I call like the secret roles, and that is still, I would say, is the majority. So the majority of this is you ask a trusted someone, another founder, another CEO, another APAC MD, who is your trusted contact, and they say, "Oh, I have just the right person for you, right?
Mhm.
Please go meet them. They will rock your world." Second thing is, of course, we have now we are getting organized a bit as a market. So we have communities. The community portfolio careers in Asia is primarily for anyone more than 10 years work experience who is in Asia and is interested to do more diversified work than a corporate career. That's what it is. Of course, the large majority of the 2,300 people we have, first of all, 2/3 are in Singapore, and then we polled this at one point. I don't have official numbers, but it's more than half fractional leaders, or would consider themselves fractional leaders or senior independent consultants. So that's the large majority is in that space, rather than a few entrepreneurs out there, people who are doing different things, but mostly in that space, right?
Yeah.
We do have an opportunities channel, so anyone who wants to join the community, and if you opportunities means you're looking for someone to do a project with or something like that, people constantly dropping that in there, saying, "Is there someone here who is in this or in that?" and etc. That's more informal, right? And then with Flexer is works quite a bit different. Or Flexer is the consulting firm where we work only with fractional leaders and independent consultants, but they're on our bench, right? So
Yeah.
we curate them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're curated. Everything runs via Flexer. We work in a certain way, and we do projects with clients with them. And for that, we are actually going to extend our bench quite a bit this year. More on that soon in the coming weeks. I'm going to announce something, but basically we're going to extend our bench
Exciting.
to certain areas because we see opportunity there. Not also more for package services. I think package services is the direction that we want to take this in.
Yeah, I think the blended and packaged is the kind of way to go. I see that more and more coming into the market. I think, it's exciting to hear that's all your options, right? So if you're if you're a fractional worker or independent contractor and looking to be part of the community, reach out. But also, there's that's how you can look at those opportunities as well. And just from your perspective, and this is probably a wider piece, coming to the end of the kind of questions, what would you see in the market for 2026? Should we be excited? Should we be fearful? What's happening, not just in fractional, but from a business perspective? Because the one thing about fractional workers is you've got 2,000 people probably working in 2,000 different companies, all speaking to different people. So often they know more than everyone else.
I mean, the volume is, I think I always say it's every individual for the last 2 years going out and talking about it, which has led us this far, right? That's how it works, I think. We're now at a stage where you have a credible visibility, incredible awareness. Many clients have already heard about it. It's too early to talk about maturity, right? But we're getting intermediaries, we're getting platforms, we're getting directories. Recruiters are picking up fractional placements. There are more boutiques like Flexer that focus on like full service fractional work in as a service in different areas. So you have a lot of options now today, right? I think as a company, if you're looking to have a much more progressive strategy in bringing in skills and hitting goals, and you want to tap into this and find new ways, most companies are already doing this. And the thing that I think still is missing is a more comprehensive approach. So I think a lot of companies that are seeing the benefit in pockets, because in this business unit, there's someone who has added this to the agency mix. And in this business unit, there's someone who's replaced the full-time with a fractional. find a common approach across this, and you can see that you probably have 3 or 4 more opportunities if you do it right? And then that can improve your business tremendously. And I think a lot more companies in 2026 are going to figure this out. Because there are so many people offering like really, really sharp models now and services, because the government of Singapore is also exploring with the Alliance to I think 32 different pilot projects this year on what models can work well in the market, and because you have this tremendous talent availability, right? And the other thing to do, I think, is to also look beyond Singapore, of course, into the region, because the model can similarly work in markets in the region. And there are quite a few people already working like this. So see where you might get benefit from other markets in the region. Yeah. We're getting into education, actually. We're getting away from beyond awareness into the how. How does this work really well? And that's where the differentiation will happen, both for the intermediaries, but also for the individuals and for the companies. Whoever's ahead of that and gets that right, everyone will look at them and actually probably go with that same model.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think people that have heard about Fractional, they're now seeing it. It is down to leadership to see if they want to embrace it. I mean, in essence, it's executive contracting, right? You're bringing in a senior executive to contract. Fractional comes from the fact that you can work for a fraction of your time for different pieces. So I think that's where it is if you've got a forward-thinking leadership where they've got these problems, I need to solve them, right? And it's a lot comes down to ego in terms of internally. Are they prepared to push? Sometimes maybe bruise some of their ego of their internal people because things haven't been done properly, hasn't done, or being open to say, I don't have that knowledge, right? I need someone that's done it before and does this. And then, I always look at sports analogies. It's like if you need a specialist kicker or in NFL, or you need a striker, you go and get a striker, right? You don't then, get your centre back and go, well, just go and have a go up front. You might have to with an injury kind of thing, but it's like looking at those specialists, right? And we've seen it a long time in executive search where you used to bring in non-exec directors, or especially if a company's going to IPO, but now it's more about that practical piece. Is like, we need to fix this, or we need to design this, or we need to productize this. Let's do that now. We haven't got that. We haven't got the skills. So if we haven't got the bandwidth or the money to hire a international CFO that's taken a business to an RPO, we can't afford it. But we can bring someone in fractionally that can look over 6 months and go, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to structure your business. And this is also, I suppose, on the other side, it is breaking into it and probably chipping away at the consulting businesses, the big four, right? This is what they used to sell and do as that thing, but people are going outside that now, and they have the confidence to do that. So we're definitely seeing that growth come across the market. And I always like to kind of end the podcast with a bit more of a question. If you're a fractional person coming into the market, is there a book that you would gift someone, or a bit of knowledge, or something they should listen to with kind of insights? Is there anything around there that you'd like to share, Moritz?
So there is obviously the book that kind of was the inspiration behind Portfolio Careers in Asia, which I have gifted a lot. It's called The Portfolio Life. By Christina Wallace. She's a Harvard University, and she wrote this book a few years ago. And when I read it, I felt that this is exactly what I've been thinking about, and this needs to be. But it needs to come alive, right? It's a book that needs to come. So it's something, if you're interested, generally, this is not about fractional work or independence. It's just about stepping out of corporate and saying, let me figure out for the next 20 years of my work life that I still have, right? I have half my work life left of me. I want it to run differently. I want to do the things that I'm good at, that I like doing, and there's other things I don't want to do anymore. This is a great book, I think, to figure out what that is. And this is the beginning and probably the most important part, because that goes before I'm building a fractional business. I'm building an independent consultant. I'm going to work with these clients. So that's it. I think it's the first one on the actual how to go about it. I don't know. Maybe one of us should write it, Richard. I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, no, that's what I was about to say, Ruth. So it sounds like you could have the playbook. Just we're waiting to be rolled out, right? It's kind of like, this is how you do it.
Yes, I would say instead of that, I would really, community is the way to go. And I don't just mean Portfolio Careers in Asia. There's others out there. Community is people who have been there, done that, right? And they will tell you what works and what doesn't for them. And you can take this and try it for yourself if it works or not. But the collective wisdom of the community is incredibly powerful, I think. And I think that's probably, it hits so many different needs, right? It hits the motivation need also. It hits the need that you're not alone on this journey. I'm a huge believer. I've seen it just come to life so many times in the last 2.5 years. big believer in that, I would say. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do. I think community is everything. Pulling together, getting people to do this. My old business was called Connected. So I think it's also when you meet people to go, you should speak to this person, or you should speak to that person, right? There's a lot of people that are very passionate about doing good work or great work that actually means something, and I think that's key. With the advent of AI, I think we're going to see more and more changes and more impacts on people's roles and so forth. But it'll come down to that humanization of having that human component, the ability to share, to tell stories, but also, they want things that are, to be able to solve problems quickly. We don't have time anymore to wait. Yeah, it's moving so fast.
You would see this. We get questions in the community chat all day long. And most of these, I would say many of these questions can actually be found by just doing a Google search. I don't mean that in a bad way. People know this, but they don't want that. They don't want to have to sit. They want actually unbiased advice from someone who's been there and done that. This is the real power, I think. It's not about information. It's about experience, tapping into someone else's experience rather than just pure information. Information is ubiquitous already, right? Everyone has access to everything. What should I do? The decision making of what should I do in this situation, with all the information I have at my fingertips, comes from or necessitates this experienced voice that says, and an experience unbiased. I think unbiased is the other important part. And this is the thing that community does so well. If you don't have I don't have a skin in the game of, I only want to I want you to be successful, right? I don't have, as a member, if I tell another member, it's like, this is what worked for me, try it out, right? It's what people are looking for more and more, I would say, in this space of where we literally can get access to everything. You can Google everything. You can go ask ChatGPT.
Give me those answers. But it's all theoretical, though. This is the thing. It's the people that people miss. The theory is one thing, but doing and actually delivering is another. And you can all go, yeah, we know about it, but have you done it?
This is where the operator comes in. This is and it's the same. I think I would say it's the same for the company, right? Like you get someone in who's been there, done that, and not just once, but 20, 30 times. And they will see around the corner. They will see the things that go wrong if you don't do X, Y, or Z. And this is the real value, I would say, also of fractional leaders coming into saying, I've done this so many times. And I see, by the way, I see this time again also that clients see when they brief the problem, they see the problem to be this big. And when the expert comes in who's done it, they say, actually, it's okay. It's like a small to medium size. We can solve it in a few weeks or in a few months or whatnot, right? Because they don't know. They cannot often wrap their head around how difficult or how easy this will actually be. And it takes someone who's done it before to say, I know what to do. And this is valuable, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the other piece that I've seen as well is just that, and I've had it where you want, you need help. It's then getting the approval for the help. Sometimes in there. So I think it's there. But I think the fractional space is fantastic. I think independent contractors highly valued. Being able to bring in a skill set or a knowledge base that you don't currently have that will increase and improve your business. Why not? It's a fantastic thing. I think really to you built an amazing platform here with the community and keep on seeing it growing. So like, for our listeners, if they want to reach out, be part of the community, or get in touch with yourself, or bring you in as a contractor or fractional worker, how do they contact you and how do they get involved in it?
If you want to know about these three, the Flexer is on flexer.ai. portfoliocareersinasia.com is the website for the community. You can find us on LinkedIn, where you can apply on the LinkedIn group with the button to join. And if you fit the criteria, you'll be let in within a week. Usually once a week we do it. The accelerator program is on pcacatalyst.com, and applications open up to the public next week. And you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can also email me at moritz@flexer.ai.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Work Right with Rich. It's been an amazing conversation, and here's wishing you an amazing, successful 2026, Moritz.
My pleasure. Same to you. Thanks a ton for having me. It's been great.
Thank you.